It's episode 100 of Sport SA Daily Diary, and to celebrate our landmark edition, we have a landmark guest, the first South African to win an Olympic medal post-readmission, Penny Heyns. Afternoon, Penny. How are you doing today?
Hi, Adam. Good, thanks. Thanks for inviting me on.
Thank you very much for joining me. It's great to chat to one of South Africa's greatest ever Olympians.
Thank you. You make me blush.
Wow, it's the records. It's certainly true.
Yeah.
You only started swimming quite late, considering, some of the youngsters, even in the image behind me. When you were at sort of younger than sort of 12, 13, were you doing other sports, or what made you get into swimming?
Well, actually, I think I come from quite a sporty family. I have two younger brothers, so we were doing everything that was available. I tended to gravitate towards the individual sporting codes rather. So swimming was my obvious talent, I think, from a very young age, but I only joined a club and took it a little more seriously around the age of my grade 7 years, so around 12, 13 years old. But I also did track and field, I did hockey, I did life saving, and so cross country. That's the way it goes when you're at school. If you can do one thing, they make you do everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. And did you excel at those other sports like you did at swimming?
I was quite good at high jump and discus up to a Durban and districts and provincial level. Hockey, at school level, I was good, but I don't know if that's anything to go by. But as I said, swimming was clearly the talent I had. It was way better than the rest of the codes.
Penny, you grew up initially in Springs, but then you moved to Amanzimtoti. I had a chat to Graham Hill yesterday, and a lot of brilliant South African swimmers all seem to come from Durban and Durban surrounds.
He's going to say that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Actually, I was born in Springs, but I think I was hardly a year old when we moved down to Amanzimtoti. So I don't really have any recollection of Gauteng as a kid growing up. But I suppose in terms of swimming, the reason why we do well coming from Durban is that, if you live along the ocean, you got to learn to swim at a young age. And it seems to be the natural sporting code that you would gravitate toward, whether or not you're actually part of a club. Whereas I think in other provinces, you're not really going to engage and embrace the sport so much if you're not part of a club.
No, very much so. And Penny, you went to the 92 Olympics at the age of 17. Tell us when you were showing sort of the level required to go to the Olympics. How old were you when you started to think, okay, I can actually be pretty good at this?
I don't think I ever thought about the Olympics. As you'll recall, we were in isolation for 32 years. So 92, the Barcelona Olympics, which happened to be my matric year, was the first time we were readmitted into the Olympic fold. So prior to that, the goals went as far as trying to maybe swim provincially and then eventually at nationals to medal. And then it became apparent, I think, around the age of maybe as young as 14, that I could be a medalist at nationals, which I was my first time round in Durban in 89, a bronze in the 200. And then steadily improving from there until I got the double gold in a SA record in my grade 11 year. So my old standard 9 year. And that was the year preceding the Barcelona Games. So it became pretty clear that if I continued with the same form, then I would be the best in the country, and possibly that would mean going to the Olympics. Although the selection process and the nationals or the Olympic trials the following year didn't go as smoothly, it was good enough to get me into the team.
And were you always a breaststroke swimmer?
Yes, I was. At primary school level, I obviously did, or even let's say at school level, I did all 4 strokes. At primary school, I still did quite well in the butterfly as well. But then I must say that back in those days, the rules were different, and I swam my butterfly with a breaststroke kick. So I guess therein lies the secret.
And Penny, we chatted about 92 Olympics. That must have been pretty overwhelming for a young 17-year-old still in matric to to be going firstly to the amazing city of Barcelona, and secondly, you all of a sudden competing against the best in the world, which you sort of hadn't had the opportunity to do before.
Exactly. I think if swimmers today hear 17 is pretty young, they would probably think that's not true, because many other countries you'll find they're a lot younger when they go. But the difference is that they've grown up with the Olympic dream and the exposure to the Olympics and international competition. And in '92, that was pretty much the first time South Africa was sending a team internationally. So for me, it was overwhelming. Having said that, I think in the lead up to the games, I also didn't fully believe we would be going. I thought that it might be a bit of a pipe dream, and it was a rumor, but I didn't really think in my heart that we would go. So to a degree, maybe I wasn't that committed either, emotionally towards it. And for me, also not just being the first time that we're competing internationally, but I was the kind of kid that didn't really like to even sleep over at a friend's house. So it didn't take more than a few days for me to be away that I was homesick. So, you know, it was overwhelming experience, a lot of things that we were not prepared for as a team. I think as a South African team, an obvious thing, but maybe surprising to your listeners and your viewers would be that, you know, a lot of countries would coach their athletes before they go to the Olympics as to how they should behave themselves around the food cafeteria, because, you know, it's open 24/7. You can eat as much as you like. I'm sure Terence Parkin shared that with you. But for me also, it was a highlight for me, and nobody told me don't eat so much. And so the behavior was not quite that of an elite athlete. And I always joke and say I was well-rounded in a few days, and that didn't really bode well for my competition either.
Well, I mean, you didn't win a medal, but you certainly made a statement, and people sort of stood up and recognized you. At those Olympics, was there anyone that you met for the first time that was like, wow, I can't actually believe I'm meeting this person?
No, not really. I think that there was an awareness in terms of a few big names like Jenny Thompson from the US. And I think one particular swimmer, Pablo Morales, there was a story behind his qualifying for the Olympic team, which my mother raved about because she thought it was so amazing. His mom had passed and he dedicated his going to the team, you know, making the team to that. And I remember I swam in a warm-up session in the same lane as him, and that was a bit of a wow moment. Subsequent to that, you know, years later now, he's the head coach at Nebraska. So that's sweet irony as well.
Yeah. And then after that, those Olympics, you got the invite to go over to the US and study there. You also got the offer to represent the USA, which you turned down, which are very proudly South African. It's great to hear.
Yeah, just a slight correction. No, what happened is I got offered the scholarship to Lincoln, Nebraska to swim and for the college team. And that's a whole roller coaster decision-making process as well. I didn't want to go, but I eventually did. And, you know, was quite successful, obviously, during those years. And then later on, my coach, after the success of Atlanta, he took the job in Calgary in Canada. And eventually I followed. And that's where this offer came up. It wasn't to swim for the US, but it was in fact to maybe represent Canada at the Commonwealth Games in '98, because I'd elected that year not to swim our trials. I was in the throes of trying to decide if I'm retiring or not. And I had been told that should I decide to continue, given that I have the fastest times by far, I would still be included into the team. And then as it turned out, when I did decide I want to swim, they said they can't include me in the team because they would set a precedent, which is fair enough. That's fine. But then Canada turned around and said, but, you know, you can come swim for us. There is a sort of a loophole among the Commonwealth countries. And then I just felt that, you know, as much as I'd like to compete at the Commonwealths, and looking at my times those years, I would have certainly won the double gold had I gone. I realized that, you know, I've always felt I'm born in South Africa for a reason. And someday I knew I would want to return to South Africa, and I couldn't really do that. Not in the same way that I would like to if I had gone ahead and represented another country. So born South African, and I'll always be South African.
Good to hear. And when we chatted to Roland Schumann, he was also very much of the opinion that it would be very strange standing up on the podium listening to a foreign a national anthem if you'd won the gold or whatever it had been.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
94 Commonwealth Games, you sort of landed your first medal. You got bronze in the 200 meters. Was that a sort of a really big moment for you, and almost a turning moment in your career? Because after that, I mean, it was just success after success.
Yeah, I think the Commonwealth Games laid a foundation for me as we were moving from there onto the World Championships. And to me, looking back on my career, it was the events at the World Championships in Rome that really was a turning point. I just must correct you. I think you got that off Wikipedia, and I don't know why they say it's a 200, because for the life of me, I can't think why. It was the 100 meters, thankfully. And I never knew how to swim the 200, remember, prior to Atlanta. So yeah, that bronze meant a lot, but more so the experience and giving me the confidence to go onto the World Champs in Rome. And that in itself is another story. But that certainly was the turning point in my career.
And you certainly got recognized by the swimming fraternity, because in '96 you were voted Female World Swimmer of the Year, the first of two. That's quite a recognition. How did you feel about that sort of title?
I think at the time didn't give it too much thought, given that, you know, it was as a result of Atlanta's performances. And even though being at the Olympic Games, then I was 21 years old and a little more experienced on the international scene, I don't think it even sunk in back then what I had done at the Olympics. It's only years later that I look back and see no one else has done 100 and 200 double yet. I always think every coming Olympics, someone will do it. Who knows, maybe it'll be Tatiana next time around. But, you know, so I have great appreciation for those moments in my career, those achievements. And so being World Swimmer of the Year, when I hear it now, it's kind of wow. But back then it was just another thing.
Oh, sure, it is. It's a wow, certainly for us normal people. But I suppose when you are winning left, right, and centre, it is just another achievement. Tell us a bit about those two races, the 100 meter and the 200 meter at Atlanta, where you first South African in 44 years to win a gold medal at the Olympics. But not only did you do that, you won both, something that no one had ever done before, something that no one has ever done again. I mean, that's a pretty remarkable feat.
Yeah, I always joke and say that I never knew no one had done the double. Otherwise, I probably also wouldn't have, you know. Ignorance is bliss. Yeah, the approach going into Atlanta, you know, that the build up to that sort of began at the World Champs in Rome 2 years earlier, where I had a very disappointing swim in the 100 breast and some tough lessons to learn, almost retired for the second or third time in my career, and realized that I need to make changes. And that failure in Rome was the catalyst for me to make the changes I needed to make, which then set me on the path towards Atlanta. So by the time I had gone to the Olympic trials in '96, it was part of the plan for me to break the world record there. Fully expecting the Aussie would go ahead and break it again in her trials, which she then didn't do. So when I went into Atlanta, I knew that I was going in with the fastest time in the world, which doesn't mean you'll win necessarily, but at least, you know, stood me in good stead. I never had my sights set on the 200 at all. About a few days before we went into the village, my coach came to me at the pool and said, "What are you planning for the 200? And I said, well, I don't know, make the final. And then I said, well, I suppose maybe a medal. And then I went and sat one side and I thought to myself, I'm in the best shape of my career. If I don't focus and take the 200 seriously, I may never have an opportunity again, you know? And so there I began to think, well, if I win the 100 or I'm in the medals for the 100, then maybe I stand a chance to sneak into the 200. And then after setting the world record in the morning of the 100 in the prelims, and then fortunately winning the 100 that evening, I knew that I have the speed that no one else has. And so I joke and say I didn't know how to swim the 200. I didn't. The only thing I knew to do is go out as hard as I could and hope that no one catches me. And fortunately, that helped. And it's I got away with it. Let's say it that way.
Obviously, the strategy for doing 100 and 200 is very different.
Yeah, for 100, you can afford to go out almost 100% from the start. I mean, it's going out with a sense of I'm fast, but I've got an easy speed. You don't want to feel like you're tensing up. Whereas the 200, you have to pace it a little bit more. And I only really learned to do that later on in my career. And I think the results of learning to pace the 200 were those results in '99 when I finally started breaking the world records in the 200. And then, strange enough, when I swam it correctly, it actually was an easy race. you know, you would think when you break a world record, swimming your fastest time ever, you must be the most tired you've ever been. But usually it's the other way around. You feel pretty good, and you always kind of have this niggling feeling that perhaps I could have gone faster if I went out faster. But it's only because you paced it correctly. Whereas going back to Atlanta, I was absolutely dead at the end of that race, fading very quickly. I was just lucky the pool, it ended when it did.
All came to you as quickly as it could. We're going to get to
Yeah.
99 because that was a phenomenal year for you. But of those two golds, I mean, getting up on the top step, listening to the South African national anthem, was one more special than the other, or were they both equally special to you?
I have no idea. You know, it was such mixed feelings. With 100, there's so much around it that it's hard to say which one was better. If you'd allow me the time, with 100, having broken the world record in the morning, that was always my goal, to try and swim my fastest time. And so in the evening, it was mixed feelings. I was very relieved and happy that I'd won the 100, but at the same time, a little bit annoyed with myself that I didn't swim a faster time. And then I get to the podium, and when you're standing down there and with the speakers and everything, there's a bit of an echo happening, and then they talk French and then they speak English, and eventually I just heard people were applauding, so I got up on the podium. I hadn't even heard my name yet. So that was a bit presumptuous. And then of course I'm standing there feeling quite embarrassed about that, and they start playing the anthem, and it sounds a little bit different from the one I remembered. And later on, I realized that apparently they had the wrong version, and the guys from Capital Radio told me they'd actually played the anthem over the telephone. And that was the first time apparently that had ever been done as well. So I didn't know any of that, of course. And with 100, you know, it was a little different for me because the person I most looked up to in swimming while I was competing was the former world record holder in the 100, Samantha Riley from Australia. So going into the Olympics, I'd broken her world record, and I fully expected she would break mine again. And I thought, you know, it would be between the two of us in terms of gold and silver. And then, of course, I win the 100, and Amanda Beard wins the silver, and Sam Riley gets the bronze. So I was standing on the podium receiving my gold medal, feeling bad for Sam Riley that she's got the bronze medal. I know that's a bit weird, but that's honestly what happened. By the time the 200 came around, I'm now a little bit more familiar with the process and what's going to happen. So I think maybe I took the moment in a little bit more. I appreciated the experience more, and it didn't feel as rushed. But I look back now and I see how Chad and the others enjoy their time on the podium. And I don't know if it's the experience and the exposure that they've had now over the years. It's a little more of a culture that they've grown up in. So it just seems to me that they're making more of the moment and enjoying it more than perhaps I had back then in my day. But that's how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see why. And I think essentially you started off the medal rush for South Africa in swimming. So they had something to refer to, whereas previously you obviously didn't have anything to refer to when it sort of came to winning Olympic golds and winning world champs and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. No, certainly. You see them running around and hugging each other and throwing flowers around and posing for photos. And I just remember when I was leading the medalists around the pool, I was just following the ushers. And when they said move, I moved. So I stuck to the television schedule quite well and being very obedient, and at the expense, of course, of not maybe sticking around the pool deck and enjoying it more.
Yeah. And then 98 at the Goodwill Games, you broke the record 50 meters. But then 99, I mean, what a year. 11 world records in 3 months on 3 different continents. 5 of the 6 breaststroke events you held the world record for, which has never been done before, male or female, and has never been done again.
Mm-hmm. I
mean, that's unbelievable.
No, 99 certainly was a very special year. I think the 50-meter world record in 98 came just after my moving to Canada to join my former coach again. So that was sort of part of the preparation for Commonwealths, which I then didn't go and compete in. And so in 99, looking back on that season, though, I think it illustrates the importance of recovering properly. I think a lot of times athletes train very, very hard, and they don't recognize the recovery process, the resting in between workouts, as being vitally important. And if I were to look at 2099 and compare the 2 seasons, the training in the pool was just as good. The difference is in 99, I really took the time to recover well. It was literally eat, sleep, swim, sleep, eat, sleep, swim. You know, that was my life for at least the summer months anyway. And I went into a small Grand Prix meet in Los Angeles, really not expecting too much, just kind of going in there to see what happens. In fact, I was trying to get out of swimming the 200. I was trying to convince my coach he should let me swim the first 100 of the 200 all out and see what happens. And then he said, how about you swim it for real for a change, and you actually learn something. And if you can get out and tell me you learned something, you can take the afternoon off. And so that was it. I swam up, back and forth, and I touched the wall. And I remember turning for the fourth 50, feeling really, really strong and good, and thinking to myself, I'm going too slow, otherwise he's not going to let me get out of the evening swim, so I better speed up. And as it turned out, that was the first 200 world record ever. And then after that approach, being a little more serious, it was easy to break it becomes easier when you're breaking your own record after that, you know. And then from there I was unshaved, untapered, really tired, and I broke the record. So I knew in a few weeks' time at the Pan Pacific Champs, if I'm rested and ready to race my best, then I can expect faster times again, which is obviously what happened. I think looking back on that season you mentioned, I had 5 of the 6 breaststroke races that exist. If I have one regret, it is that season I came home, we had the All Africa Games, I broke the 100-meter short course world record in Joburg. Then I went to Durban to swim a small meet for Graham Hill, the Seagulls meet. And I broke the 100 short course world record again, my own being at sea level now, it's easier. And then someone said, well, swim the 50 quickly and see if you can't do that. So within half an hour, I swam the 50, and then I broke the world record in the 50. And the following day was the 200 breaststroke. And, you know, by now it's been almost 12 weeks. It's 11 weeks and 11 world records, and I'm tired. And I had a flight booked out to go on holiday. And I decided, you know what, next year's the world short course. I'll swim the 200 at world short course. So I never swam the 200 short course that year. And that's the one record I don't have.
And you probably would have smashed it as well. Penny, you're so humble about these achievements. I mean, you know, a lot of other people would walk around with their head on their shoulders just like 3 times the size. Why are you so humble? I mean, what you've achieved in swimming is nothing short of phenomenal.
Now, look, I do feel very blessed to have had my career. I think anybody who knows me knows a bit of my story. You know, what is it that triggered the fact that I swam and went into this particular sport? And it comes down to a simple golden thread that ran through my entire career. And it's simply that I believe my talent is a God-given talent, and that I have a duty, I don't want to say duty, but that I have a responsibility to use my talent to the best of my ability. And that's all I did. I never swam because I wanted to break records or win medals. I just wanted to know that the day I retire or the day I pass away and stand before my maker, I can say I did the best I could with the talent I was given. What that ended up being and what that led to in terms of my achievements is many a time for me mind-blowing. I feel quite removed from it. In fact, sometimes I feel like there was somebody else. So while I did experience it, at the same time, I'm kind of viewing it as more from the approach of I'm still trying to understand why God allowed it. You know, that was my single thought in the village the night after the 200 breaststroke in Atlanta. People say, what were you thinking? Well, I didn't go out. I went home, and I remember lying in bed thinking, what now? You know, it's almost like oh no, what now? Why did you let me do this? What's the expectation? You know? So yeah, but I feel humbled by my career. And as I look back on it, I feel that while the achievements were nice and it's certainly opened doors, and I've had opportunities in many other areas in life now, it's the lessons that you take out of your sporting career that ultimately is the most important, and how you use that platform and the lessons to hopefully affect change and make a difference in other people's lives, because I mean, that's really what it's all about anyway.
And do you feel you're doing that now with your swimming academy?
Well, I'm just, we're doing a lot of swim clinics around the world, so that affords me the opportunity to, and actually the swimming is the excuse to get the kids in the classroom, or to get even sometimes it's adult groups, really to share the life lessons and the experiences. And, you know, I love teaching. I think I'm a teacher at heart, and so swimming is the opportunity to do that. Obviously, out of these clinics grew the demand for me also do stroke correction and focus on technique. And being a bit of an analyst, I really enjoy doing that aspect of it. But all of it is creating opportunity to interact with people. Most of the time, younger athletes, but I must admit, I'm quite proud to say I have a couple of people in their 80s even that have come to swim with me. One lady is a former bronze medalist from the for South Africa in a relay team from the Melbourne Games. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I do feel like I am able to do that, and even more so through the speaking, professional speaking opportunities that exist. I also feel that sometimes the sense of achievement, for lack of a, or let's rather say fulfillment, is sometimes greater doing what I am now than it was when I swam, if that makes sense.
I suppose it all just gave you the opportunity to do it. Penny, you went on to 2000 Olympics. You won bronze in the 100 meter. 99, again, you were Female Swimmer of the Year. You were inducted into the South African Hall of Fame. In 2007, you were inducted into the International Hall of Fame. You were voted into South Africa's top 10 100 people. I mean, these are all unbelievable achievements. Do any of them sort of specifically stand out as the moment of your career? Or is it Atlanta that is for sure, that is the pinnacle?
It's a difficult thing to say. I mean, that thing about the top 10 or something that you said at the end there, I don't even think I know about that. But anyway, the Atlanta Olympics will always hold a very special place in my heart because, as I say, at the time it was, my motivation was always try and swim your best time. So that would imply world records. And, but in hindsight now, I recognize the achievement itself in having won the double is very unique. And so for that reason, it's very special. And then, of course, for me, the whole journey around 1999 and those world records and how it happened. And for me, again, it was very much a spiritual journey as well. So that holds a lot of weight in terms of, you know, what I would consider to be the height of my career. It's just the timing was slightly off. It should have been 2000. But that's life.
And Penny, so you sort of kicked off gold medals and medals at Olympics for South African swimmers. But other than yourself and sort of Natalie du Toit, until now with Tatiana and a couple of the youngsters coming through, it's predominantly been the men that have been sort of excelling. Why is that? Why have there not been any more Penny Heyns or Natalie du Toits coming through for South Africa until now with Tatiana and Erin and Becky?
Well, I think South Africa, in a way, maybe got lucky with myself. And in my era, you know, we had Sarah Pova as well. That was very good. Got a 4th at the Olympics. But it's interesting to note Sarah's coach at the time was also a foreigner, Caroli Van Torres, and I was based in the States. And I think I was also, you know, going into my early 20s, so post puberty and the changes you go through. So I had settled down, let's say, and when I reached my peak. I think it's very difficult to coach a girl in comparison to a male. There's a lot of other things to consider, and naturally the female swimmers go through that plateau where for a couple of years you really don't seem to improve much. And the trick for a coach is to try and keep the swimmer motivated, stay focused, and continue through that. Now, when you've been really successful as a young swimmer, that becomes even more difficult. Even the likes of, just behind you there, Amanda Beard is a good example. She was silver medalist in Atlanta, then went through her puberty, her changes for 3 years, had a really dismal swimming career, but stuck through it. The Americans are very good at doing that. And then when she got out on the other side, she goes to the 2004 Olympics, she wins with world records. And so we haven't had the experience in this country, I think, to help the girls get through that, and also the role models. The girls haven't seen that, whereas the boys, it's a little bit different. I think what's happened now, though, is you've seen with in the case of Tatiana, Rocco Meyering obviously has done an awesome job in developing her and coaching her, and they have a great relationship, and that's so important. But what Rocco's done really well also is that he recognized that there are certain things he's got to be able to offer her as a coach, which maybe he doesn't have that experience. And so he drew on the experience, the likes of my former competitor, Sam Riley, her coach. Rocco got him involved, and he helped Tatiana and a couple of the other girls. So Rocco drew on the experience of foreign coaches. So not to take anything away from our coaches in South Africa, I think we are getting there. But still, I will still struggle not to believe that ultimately those swimmers who have performed well in South Africa, barring maybe the likes of Terence and Chad, the rest have all had the help of foreign coaches. And that's a fact that we can't get away from.
Certainly a learning for us and for future swimmers. Penny, who's been the most influential person or impactful person that you've met in your career? Now, I'm going to discount Madiba because, you know, so many people, it's him, and rightly so. Other than Madiba, who's been the impactful maybe on your career or inspirational that's maybe got you to where you were?
I don't think I can pick any given person. Madiba would be an easy answer because of the experiences, and you can say he's a good example in terms of humility, etc., etc. For me, to bring it a little closer to home, I do believe that you are a product of the people you surround yourself with. So I was very fortunate that I was surrounded with people who cared for me as a person. If I take it further back in my career, even obviously my parents, if it weren't for their support and the encouragement and always believing that, you know, that I could do better. And I think instilling the right mindset in terms of you should be doing it to be the best that you can be, as opposed to beating everyone around you. Then definitely, obviously, my mom and dad. I had some really great teachers through my school career. And then after the success of Atlanta, I was very blessed that by default, my current business partner, Zelda van Vieren, that she was involved in a company that did event management. And so she was appointed to be my manager. And I think that as a young athlete at the age of 21 and being a girl, it was a dangerous environment. There were a lot of people around that, as we've seen with Michael Phelps and others, they enable the athlete to possibly go down the wrong road. And I was very lucky that I had people like Zelda and others around me that would protect me. And definitely there were occasions when others did not appreciate the fact that I had the right people around me. So, you know, you're a product of the people you surround yourself with. And then I think finally, obviously, I think the people who have influenced my life from a spiritual point of view, because if it weren't for my faith walk, because that really carried me through my career. Every single time I wanted to retire, I came back to, did you pray about it? Are you sure this is God's will? And despite how I felt, if I wasn't 100% sure that God was done with my swimming, I kept going. And so it's like I say, it's very difficult to pick one given person.
Well, Penny, it's been awesome to chat to you. You really are a national treasure and a national icon. You know, you'll always have those records and the gold medals and you know, everyone knows Penny Heyns. So it's been an absolute honor to chat to you today on Sport SA Daily Diary. Thank you for your time. Good luck with your swimming academy and your coaching and your teaching. It's awesome that you actually do spend time giving back.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, and all the best to you as well. Take care.
Catch tomorrow's episode of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we chat to the first woman to win a national championship race in South Africa.